everyone happy with what the government's doing on an important issue.
Good. Now we're going to open it up to questions from the floor, and Jai, who has the microphone, will decide who's going to ask the question, because he has the control. He's the executive director, you see. I'm only the national convener.
Could the panel tell me, Mr. Morgan, when you're conducting a public phone-in poll, how many people do you ask, and how do you select them, please?
Well, if we're doing a telephone poll, it's not a phone-in poll, so I don't want to play with words, but a phone-in poll is where you say, if you're interested, give us a call. We don't do those. So what we do is we identify a really good random cross-section of Australia. So it's from a list, essentially, phone books and all sorts of other sources of information. So you get a list of all people that you could possibly have, and you randomly select them, making sure that you get enough from each state and each sort of area. And then you check that you make sure you've got, enough wealthy, poor, men, women, all of those sorts of things. That's crucial. You get a good cross-section. The minimum that you'd be dealing with would be, say, 500. Normally, telephone polls, you'd be very comfortable with 1,000. But most of the data that much of the data that we've presented today is based on about 1,200 interviews done face-to-face in people's homes every week. So when we look at those trends, you're talking about 10 years with 50,000 interviews each year. So you're really confident that they're big trends. But when you're talking about something like voting intention, it can move a bit on a weekly or daily basis, so you have to do like snap polls.
News poll each week get the same result as us. So if you read ours on Friday, you'll see what they're going to say on Tuesday. They should. Yep.
Right. The polling indicated a decline in the environment as an important issue. Is that being followed or likely to be followed by a decline in the vote for the Greens?
I doubt that. I think the Greens vote is actually nearly at an all-time high, because the Greens are handling the issues which are concerning the electorate. Now, the Greens, as we know, are to the left of Labor in many issues, not all, to the left of Labor on most issues. They believe in government control. They don't think we should have any mining in the country. We're going to have wooden bridges, of course. And they don't think we should manufacture things. Wooden bridges, they won't let us cut down trees. That's right. But they'll be growing more trees. Now, Michelle's going to answer the question more deeply.
What we've actually seen over time, in the olden days, if you like, you had poorer people voted Labor, richer people voted Liberal. And poorer people were less well educated, richer people were better educated. It was all very clear. Now we've actually got a lot more people who are being educated who haven't come from wealthy backgrounds. There's a whole mixing up in society. And we're actually finding blue-collar, conservative Labor voters, and Julia Gillard appeals very strongly to that group. But you've also got extremely well-educated, open-minded, liberal-minded, anti-conservative people who would be sort of Labor voters, but they don't approve of some of the traditional, more blue-collar Labor views. And they are ripe for this new movement which the Green Party seems to have picked up on. When the Greens were only, as they've been called, tree-hugging lunatics, and they were only focused on the environment, that would not necessarily have appealed to that group. Although, at that time, the environment was a big issue, so it was a big draw card. But now the Greens have actually got policies which are fairly libertarian on most views, so they're appealing to that better educated, what was a Labor group, and picking off disenfranchised Conservative voters who have strong humanitarian views about the asylum seeker issue. So the Greens are picking up a very interesting, highly educated, highly intelligent, libertarian group of people, and so they're not losing their vote just on the environment fading as an issue.
The Greens are handling the asylum seeker issue very differently than the two major parties. As we all know, they want to let the asylum seekers be landed in Australia and give them not permanent residence, but they want them to free them in the community and be more friendly towards them. I think that's a perfectly good policy, in fact, and there'll be many Conservatives who agree with that. In other words, they think it's unfair to send children to Malaysia and places like that. And let's face it, there's very few, if we think about it, there's very few people actually arriving on boats. Let's be sensible about it. And we could easily take all the asylum seekers because we need more hard-working first-generation Australians. In many ways, it couldn't be worse than some of the people we've got here now. The fact is, these asylum seekers, I think it's a real issue, and I think it's a real humanitarian issue. And personally, I think all of us in Australia should try and bring as many asylum seekers here as we can, because we need to make this country more productive. There, Michelle made the point, nothing's been mentioned about productivity change in this country for years. It's time we started with a bit of productivity change. Nothing like a few more migrants coming here to make it happen.
Sounds like Bob's going to get another vote.
Yes. Look, I was just wondering...
We can't hear the microphone.
Can you?
Next question.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Look, I was just wondering if you could give us your latest figures regarding the people's opinions regarding the environment, and as to whether human activity is having a significant impact on the environment, or whether all significant changes are happening along the lines of the last 6 billion years or so at the hands of Mother Nature.
Look, we've actually surveyed that question, and unfortunately it's not one that I keep in my head. I probably should. I try and keep them all there. Have a look on the website or leave us your name and we'll have a look at it. But we haven't actually polled it for a while. We've really more been looking at the whole issue and how it plays out. But we understand that that's one of the issues, and it relates to the carbon tax, needs more exploration.
Yeah. Most people are against the carbon tax, but most people believe in cutting back emissions. So it's kind of, you've got both sides.
Do most people who register on your polling as being concerned about climate change, would most of them adopt the theory of anthropogenic global warming as a significant factor in climate change? Most people
believe that humans are responsible for carbon dioxide and global warming. That is what they believe in. The fact is, it's probably rubbish, but the fact is they believe in it.
Can I say the issue on environment, when we have people saying the environment is one of the major issues, you have the concerns about water, and water shortage was a major issue in that environmental bundle. So it wasn't necessarily just about global warming and climate change. It was issues about water, about drought, about bushfires, a whole range of things about the environment, including pollution. So environment is a much broader issue than the carbon tax. You know, the carbon tax is kind of the pointy end of one strand of that environmental argument. And I suspect we're already beginning to see the debate about the carbon tax sort of changing its shape. I think the carbon tax will probably just happen, but the issue will now move more towards a clean environment. It will garner support from people because we all want a clean environment. Nobody wants to make the environment awful. And that's something that everyone can get behind, but everyone won't get behind a carbon tax. This environmental issue is still shaping and reshaping, and I think we'll see some interesting shape changes over the next